Hi everyone, I'm Andrew from OneOT. Here with me today I have David from JT and Märt from OneOT. And as we have been working with JT a lot on topics related to eSIM and IoT, David was kind enough to join us to record a video session. We wanted to highlight some of the key topics surrounding IoT and eSIM. David, how do you see the growth of IoT over the next few years?
I see a very positive trend around IoT and the growth. What we see in the market is that there are more and more demands on connected application. And that is an effect of what's happening in the market right now. People want to have more connected stuff and they want to have more digital services. And we have a very important task here to help customers to simplify to connect IoT application. So it's a positive trend.
Yeah, and looking at the numbers, then of course the expectations have been pulled lower now, but still the market is expecting the number of connected devices to double over the next 2 years. So roughly there are like roughly 14 billion connected devices around the world, and this is expected to increase to 25 billion in 2 years' time. So definitely although the growth might be not as heavy as expected, but still it will double over the next 2 years. And as OneOT is pushing the SME and startup market and is offering mostly services to smaller players on the market, then what we see is that this market segment is very much now driving the eSIM market on the eSIM market, and that's the trend that definitely is very obvious.
Mm-hmm. And with these projections, we've seen these in the billions and billions of devices every year, and every year or so it seems that the projection just doubles or triples on itself. But we've also seen that we don't always, as a market, reach those projections as they're being forecasted. So, David, what is the main barrier that you see to achieving this projected growth?
Yeah, so I totally agree with you. I think the market, we have not succeeded to make this enough easy for our customers to use. So I divide the barriers in 3 categories, and that is technology, and it's regulatory, and it's also carrier barriers. So if we start with the technology, and that is when we are launching new type of technologies like MBIoT and Cat-M1, we need to make sure that customer can use them. And I think we are lacking here. We're making it too hard to get access to these new technologies, and we should just work more together to make it easier for customers to use. The other area is about regulatory. What we see in the market right now is that more and more countries around the world are blocking the market for competition. And I think eSIM is a good solution for that. So we are buying profiles, local profiles, and then reselling them to the customers. But it's still hard and it's very costly to do this integration. I think that's a position for JT. We want to be this connectivity hub and help customer. And the other blocking area is around the carriers, that some carriers, they don't understand why they should do this. And in reality, the enterprise and the service providers and the partner MNOs, we want to give them more business by helping enterprises to access their markets. So I think that's the main areas that and the main barriers we need to work with.
Yeah, totally agree with David on this. So as the eSIM is, let's say, opening up the telecom market and gives actually the ownership more towards device makers and service providers, then of course these barriers that David mentioned are really existing on the market, and totally agree that MNOs or telecoms need to be more, let's say, open or flexible, because at the end of the day they need to understand that in today's world, they are not anymore selling megabytes or gigabytes, and the eSIM will end up on the market anyway at some point, so it's a matter of time. So of course the telcos need to rethink their value prop on the market as well, and definitely the existing let's say mindset of a very defensive approach is definitely one of the highest barriers on the market. So very happy to see JT being very pro eSIM, and that's definitely the way to go. And technological side as well, of course, like David mentioned, then because yeah, the narrowband can be pointed out indeed, and reason being is that narrowband is very good technology and very big, let's say, hype on the IoT market today. But the you know, the sad story about this is that the roaming agreements are not there, and actually the standards are not supporting this. So narrowband exists in one country and in one network only. So really is not supporting the global approach there, and is very, again, falls into this defensive field. So definitely, if we can somehow reduce those barriers, then eSIM would kick off much better.
So you both mentioned eSIM as one of the key factors to growth for IoT. So how exactly does eSIM rollout or acceptance in the wider market play a role in IoT's growth? And then also, what kinds of companies or enterprises are gaining the most from eSIM adoption?
Yeah, so I should say that, you know, eSIM is a trend that we are moving power from the operators to the enterprise, and that enables the enterprise to create new type of technologies and services for customers, which is fantastic. And at JT, we're not afraid to leaving over more power to the enterprise, because we see that they generate much more revenues for us, and which is fantastic. But I think that, you know, that's the main driver of eSIM, is to enable the enterprise to get more power. And we see that it's automotive have been one vertical working really hard with eSIM. We see that's the point of sales, and it's new type of consumer areas that are also adapting eSIM more and more. And I think, yeah, we will see a high growth in the market around this.
Absolutely, and I think the second wave of the eSIM is definitely you know, driven by SMEs and smaller players, because the automotive and consumer market, of course, helped to kick off the eSIM. But now the SMEs and smaller guys are coming along and will start, you know, driving the market as well. So in large, basically, it's of course beneficial for all of the global players. So whoever want to do business in different countries, regions, or sell their devices to different countries and regions, and don't want to, you know, deal with different telecom SIMs or deals or contracts. So definitely, then it helps a lot. So yeah, let's see. It really depends. And regarding telcos, you know, of course, as they are defensive and thinking that it might steal business away from them, then actually it's the other way around as well. It will definitely bring a lot of business to them, because if the IoT sector is booming and more devices are connected to the internet, then of course you know, the ones who provide very good quality service then will win anyway on the market. So eSIM is definitely a good flexible way or providing very flexible service to IoT players.
David, with your perspective coming from more of the telecom side of the business, what change do we see coming for the carriers and the telecoms with eSIM adoption?
I see it's a big change for telcos and operators because we have been working with roaming for many years. We have big roaming teams and everything is around roaming, and suddenly we are getting eSIM, which is more a wholesale business where you're reselling and buying from each other eSIM profiles, and it's both around who to talk to and commercial agreements, and also how to deliver this to the enterprise customers. And in this environment, you need companies like JT, who is trying to put this together and make this easy, both for service provider and enterprise to buy. But there are many carriers out there that have not taken this step or are using eSIM to protect their business. And that's a bit sad because that is not fueling the IT market, it's more or less stopping the IT market.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally agree on this. So eSIM is not about selling megabytes or gigabytes, and for MNOs it means that they need to rethink their value prop, like I mentioned earlier. So and how it's done is like pretty much what One is doing on the market as well. We are putting all of the pieces of the puzzle together. So eSIM means collaboration between MNOs, MVNOs, eSIM vendors, device makers, and hardware makers as well. So as you know, eSIM needs to, or not all of the hardwares are supporting eSIM. So definitely someone need to put this collaboration into work that help the clients to launch the eSIM and test through on the IoT modules, and someone needs to also aggregate different telcos on the one service as well. So for SMEs and startups, that's what One is doing as well. We're trying to make the parties collaborate, and we're trying to bundle them together into one good eSIM service. So at the end of the day, we think that eSIM is not just the connectivity; it's the full service that we offer to IoT device makers and service providers. And it comes with the platform which enables to control the eSIMs. It comes with eSIM itself, and it comes with a very extensive hardware support in order to help the customers to roll out the eSIM in their devices.
I really like your approach, and I think you're doing a fantastic work in the market to lower the barriers and simplify for SME companies to launch a solution with eSIM. And I think this will be a lesson for carriers that the carriers that do not take these steps, they will fall off, and they have to update their business models and the way of working to adapt to this new to the new market and the new requirements from the market. So I really like your approach, and I see this as it's a solution you need to sell to the customers.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for your compliments, and happy to see that JT is really thinking long, and I'm sure that's creating new streams of business for JT as well. And that's what I think everyone in the eSIM field need to think about, like what are those new streams, and what are those services that actually the market needs.
Yeah, and I agree about that. It's the eSIM can be, as we said, it can be hard for operator to adapt. But if you look at eSIM, that it can create new type of opportunities for you, then you have another view of it. So you can have security application, you can have network application, and you can have other type of solution that makes the life for enterprise and service provider easier. And that's where we need to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for eSIM, how should the device makers or an enterprise prepare for a global rollout, and what are the main considerations that they need to take into account, David?
I should say that the main learning that from my 9 years experience is partnership. You need to find a partner who you can work with, who can help you. And you don't need to just find one partner. You need to work with a number of partners here. Because it can be complex, but if you have the right partner to work with, this will be much more easier to work. So you have the requirements between the eSIM solution and the module and the IoT application. So it can be tough, but my recommendation here is that you need to find a number of partners, work tight with them, and that will make your deployment much more easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. The collaboration is the key element in eSIM. So what we see is that, eSIM is on the market. There are so many eSIM vendors providing this solution. There are so many IoT modules supporting eSIM already. The market demand is there, so we see it among our client requests coming in. So definitely not only automotive companies or consumer like devices need eSIM, but actually all of the SMEs and startups already are looking towards eSIM as well. So what is currently missing is definitely the the telecom side, like mentioned earlier. The biggest barrier I see is the lack of supports by MNOs, and happy to see that JT is not among those telcos. So definitely what telecoms need to think is that what is the value prop for them, and if the eSIM is not about selling gigabytes and megabytes anymore, then telcos really need to rethink like what service they are providing actually to the customers, because customers are not anymore just buying megabytes and gigabytes, and that's the main thing that is missing on the market, and what is missing or what is holding back the growth of eSIM.
Yeah, and as I said, we at JT we really would like to take this position and help both service provider and enterprises, and forcing the big MNOs to take the steps to not be so protectionist and opening up this technology.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we see that all of the pieces to the eSIM puzzle, shall we say, are there, but there's few companies that are willing to reach across the aisle, collaborate, and actually pull together a fully working solution. So it's always refreshing to work with a company like JT, who is like-minded in that respect.
Thank you. Yeah.
And maybe to add one topic, this conversation is that if you put yourself in the shoes of the IoT device maker or service provider who is trying to do global business and expand to many countries or provide service to different countries, then once they start doing this, they see that there are more than 700 MNOs on the market, more than 1,200 MVNOs on the market. So there are so many different telcos to choose from. Then there are 2G, 3G, 4G. We all know that 2G is shut down in parts of the world, 3G is shut down in parts of the world. Then there are of course, the low power WAN, like narrowband and Cat-M1 technologies on the market to choose from. Besides, of course, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and satellite options. Then there are permanent roaming regulations, and so on and so on. So what eSIM is all about is solving those questions actually for the IoT service provider or device maker, so that they don't need to handle those cases country by country, network by network. So you know, MNOs need to actually also think what is their part in this chain, and what service are they actually providing.
I totally agree with you, and I think we need actors like you and JT to drive this market forward. So I totally agree with you.
Well, thank you, David, and thanks, Märt, for the interesting discussion. To our viewers, if you also found this interesting, you can find more resources at the 1OT blog or at JT's IoT website. Thank you for watching.